all the way from sunny Portugal, I do want to welcome Joseph the Dreamer, with a double E. Joseph the Dreamer, a man on a mission, a man who has decided to take certain steps to discipline his life. And he hosted a session a few weeks ago around music and the benefits of music, the positive impact of sound frequencies. And it was really, really exciting to hear someone else talking about it with such conviction and knowledge base. So again, what I'd like to do before I hand over to Joseph, I want us to go through some of the frequencies that are really important, the ones you really ought to know. I'll tell you a bit about them, then Joseph will talk, then I will share with you some practical methods that you can use to incorporate those frequencies into your daily lifestyle. Is that all right? Perfect. All right, so let me do a quick recap, just to refresh the room and set some context as to what we're talking about. Now, there is a group of frequencies commonly known as the solfeggio healing frequencies, and they have particular effects if played or preferably tuned to music. So music tuned to 396 hertz, that's the first one we're talking about today, 396. It helps remove some subconscious fears, worries, and anxiety. That's an important one today, right? Many of us have got anxiety in the society because of this pandemic. We're worried about jobs. We're worried about loss of contact with family and friends. There's a lot of subconscious fears and anxiety in society. So music at 396 can help with that issue. 432, we discussed this last week. The Beatles, Bob Marley and John Lennon and a few others had recorded their music in this frequency, which was divergent to what was commonly played, which was 440 at the time. Pop music, most pop music is 440. So 432 is a wonderful frequency. It lowers the heart rate, and this frequency fills the mind with feelings of peace and well-being. And I'm sure we could all do with a bit more peace and a lot more well-being. Okay, so that's 432. 528 is the next one I will just recap on. 528 is, some call it the frequency of love, some call it the divine frequency, but it has the ability to heal and repair the body. Powerful tool. DNA repair, that's such a bold statement, but as Joseph mentioned to us last week, the body is approximately 80% water, and it is influenced by surroundings. I'll let Joseph go into that a bit more later on. Frequency 639. It helps balance emotions and elevates the mood. And again, we all could do with that. There's enough bad news around that could reduce the mood, how we're feeling. There's so much incidents taking place beyond the pandemic that could cause you to be in a low mood. If you want that mood elevated, 639 is the one you could be listening to. I'm going to rush through these. I've got three more to talk about. 741. This helps with problem solving. Yep. Cleansing the body and self-expression. So for those of you who may be a bit concerned about expressing yourself, and we were on a session this morning talking about self-love, maybe this is the frequency you should be listening to. All right. 852. Another powerful one. This one helps to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. I said this already. If ever a time we need these frequencies, surely we need them now. So it makes it ideal when dealing with nervousness or anxiety. You know, it just helps retune your thoughts. You know, there's so many other practices like NLP and counseling and therapy and psychotherapy and all these other things that help retune your thoughts. But this is a brilliant accompaniment to it. All right, and then the last one I'll just touch on for today, for this moment, is 963. Now that one is elevated. It's the one that helps you with your enlightenment and your self-actualization. It helps activate the pineal gland, which really does help you with your mood, your thinking, your behaviors, the whole nine. And when you are open to that highest level of vibration, you connect to source and the divine realm. That's a very, very powerful tool, not to be used lightly or even unadvisedly. It's just one that with practices you get through understanding a bit more about how these frequencies work, you can start to apply them in your daily practice. So that's just an overview of how these frequencies work. We weren't taught this at school. You probably weren't taught this in your churches or in your mosques or synagogues. I'm not saying it's good or a bad thing. It's just stuff that's not taught often. Some musicians may understand the keys and the scales, but not necessarily even understand frequencies. They can feel stuff when they play it, but not necessarily articulate specifically, scientifically, what's going on. So that's the backdrop to tonight's session. And so I think that's the perfect ground to introduce Joseph the Dreamer. He's a phenomenal young man. I'm saying young, he's not much younger than me, but he's younger than me. Good evening to you, Joseph. How are you? Just need you unmuted. There you go.
Good evening.
Evening, sir.
Dr. Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm doing really well, Joseph. Really, really well.
Thank you again for having me. Thank you again for having me.
Oh, I'm privileged. I'm privileged. So Joseph, I've just given a bit of a recap around the healing frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who didn't join in last week, could you tell us how you first encountered these frequencies and what made it stick? What made you start to practice using them?
Well, the truth of the matter is I've always had a deep connection to music. It's like a lot of us. One of the things that I noticed is how that I was sometimes affected by different types of music. You know, and I alluded to this last week. You know, when you go to the gym and you want to pump some iron, you want to get your energy up, there's certain types of music that you listen to. At university, when I was doing my degree, a lot of the time I listened to classical music. I listened to Beethoven or Bach or Rachmaninoff, and I found myself very calm and very relaxed. It's like the music you're playing in the background, Dr. Mike. I feel like I'm in spa, you know. And music plays a massive part in our everyday lives. But more importantly, sound plays a huge part in our life. And it's very interesting. Think of when you've gone swimming, Dr. Mike, right? And you've gotten out of the swimming pool, and there's that little bit of water in your ears that you can't quite get out, and how it distorts the sound around you. It's very disorientating. It's extremely disorientating. So sound plays a big part as one of our senses. It plays a massive part in our everyday life. So for me, I think it was, number one, the way that sound and music impacted me. That was the first thing. I think where I had a real serious encounter with sound and with frequency specifically was when I became ill. So about 18 months, nearly 2 years ago now, I had taken a trip and I was in Portugal again, doing some business. And I'm not going to go into the ins and outs and the full detail, but I came down with something that was a little bit scary, to be honest with you, because the first thing I did is went to the doctors. And to be honest with you, I don't even know why I went to the doctors, because I'm not somebody who typically would go to a normal conventional doctor. I would look at, more traditional methods, more natural methods firstly. But when I got back, there was this thing that had appeared on my face, and it was massive, and it started to grow. I went to the doctor, and the doctor turned around and said, "Oh, well, guess what? Here you go, antibiotics, have some of them." I'm like, okay. They didn't diagnose me, didn't tell me what it was, didn't have any clue, just gave me antibiotics. Unfortunately for me, I took those antibiotics and it got ridiculously worse, okay? And this became extremely painful. I've always been a very fit guy. I've always been somebody who's never been prone to illness in that kind of way. But this thing took a hold of me, and with two hands was really shaking up my world. And when you have something that debilitates you and affects your face and causes you pain, you begin to look at lots and lots of different things. And it actually affected my self-confidence massively. At this moment in time, there are a couple of things that happened. Number one, my faith was intensified. Because when you begin to realize that you're not in control, and it really can humble you. It puts you in a place of retrospect, and it humbles you. And that's what happened with me. In addition to that, I started to look at holistic ways of healing myself, number one. And one of those things was sound. Sound played a big part, because I started to look up things like sound healing. And I'd come across it before, but it was always to do with things like Tibetan monks and, Buddhism and your chakras and all this kind of stuff. And as somebody who's a believer, some of the time you can run away from things like that when you see them, right? And the truth of the matter is, we should always look much deeper into any scenario, instead of just literally putting a hex on it and saying, no, I'm not interested. So for me, what happened was I began to look into it a lot deeper and realized the scientific impact of sound and frequency. I realized that basically frequency surrounds us everywhere. We are resonating as we speak as beings. Everything around us is resonating. Everything around us has a frequency. Whether that is an object, or whether that is something that is alive, it has a frequency. In addition to that, as human beings, we have a frequency. We resonate at a certain frequency, something in the region of 7 hertz, something in the region of 7 hertz. In addition to that, I suddenly realized, hold on a second, this whole conversation about frequency was much bigger than just, what the idea that I had in my head. It was much bigger than that. So the truth of the matter is, I began to pray intently. I began to take on certain herbs intently. Now, some of the herbs that I took on board had a frequency. Has anybody heard of Corella? Heard of Corella? Now, Corella is green, and it's a type of plant. And I was taking Corella powder. Now, Corella powder is green, and it contains a lot of iron. I think they took one of the statistics is I'd have to eat bags and bags of spinach in order to just, for one concentrated spoon of Corella. But to cut a long story short, the frequency of Corella is 5 to 8 hertz, which is referred to as the God frequency. So the foods that we eat have frequency, and that's what impacts our bodies. So I started thinking, oh my, hold on a second. It just opened up a whole realm. So I began listening to 174 hertz. Okay, 174 hertz. Now this frequency is a low frequency. Okay, and this frequency reduces pain. And as I said to you, I was very ill. I was not well. I was sick. And you've got to be very careful with frequency, because it is really the blueprint, it's the fabric of what makes everything up. So you can't begin to just play around with it. You've got to respect it. There are low frequencies that can make you ill. I think last week, one of the guys was talking about, that he was playing slapping the bass, and I forgot, he said he was killing him. And literally, you can do that. I kid you not, you can do that. So you've got to be very careful with frequencies. But 174 hertz was a frequency that I started listening to day and night. And I'm going to give you, again, it's the evening. I don't want to give you too much of a vivid picture, but my face was covered in things, okay? And where my beard is going through, it felt like there were thousands of sharp needles growing through my face. It was a very excruciating period of time. Like there was a lot of pain I was going through. So I needed something for pain relief. And once you've taken, I'm not one for Nurofen and all these kind of drugs, whether they're placebos or not, you know. So I started listening to this frequency and going to sleep, listening to 8 hours of this frequency, and waking up in the morning and feeling relief. The pain, as well as the prayer and everything else, the pain was being relieved by me listening to these frequencies. So I started to think, hold on a second, I've got to pay attention. And I think there's nothing more than having a real life experience where it's not wishy-washy, it's not, you know, it's something that had to work, you know? So I needed it to work, and it met me at my point of need. Again, at this moment in time, I was fasting, I was praying, I was cleansing, so I could hear much more clearly. 174 hertz was a massive frequency for me. The other frequency that helped was 528. You mentioned it before. 528 is about DNA regeneration. Now, I wanted to regenerate and rejuvenate my cells on a molecular level. I was taking on board a lot of different types of herbs. I started becoming almost my own herbalist. There was a book that was given to me. Well, I actually paid for it, but it was recommended by an amazing, she's my second mum now, but she was an angel. I literally met this woman and she was an angel, you know, God-fearing woman, Sister Yvonne. I'd love to one day get you guys to speak to her because she is a phenomenal person. She's phenomenal. And she really guided me through so many different things. I began to take things like golden seal, which is quite a strong herb. Again, it resonates at a specific frequency. I began to take things like slippery elm. I began to take red clover. I began to take nettle. All of these, and a lot of these are teas. I began to take powder arco, which I mentioned previously. Some of these are teas, but they're very, very, very powerful. As for instance, golden seal is something that you can't take for more than 7 days. Don't overload your system. And I think some of the time we place a big, heavy emphasis on synthetic drugs. Mother Nature is much more powerful. Have you ever heard of parsley, Dr. Mike? You know parsley, right?
Yes.
Right. Parsley is a very non-intrusive herb, right? Or plant. Do you know that you can overdose on parsley?
I didn't know that.
And did you know that parsley is a hallucinogenic?
Wow.
So if you take massive amounts of parsley, you will trip out, literally. So that's on one side. On the other side, from a female standpoint, parsley can be used to help control the menstrual cycle. So one thing which is very important when it comes to the universe and the environment God created, all the answers are in nature. Every single last answer is in nature. He's created the perfect structure, the perfect ecosystem. We just don't understand it. We're just about catching up. You know, people are sitting now talking about going into outer space. Why don't we just focus on Earth for a second? You haven't even gone into the depth of the sea yet. You're trying to go into Mars. There are things that we don't understand. We do not have a clue about them. It says, know thyself, right? So the first part of knowing thyself is knowing what are we made up of? What can impact me? Now, whether you believe in frequency or not, frequency is affecting you. There are low tones that are around you that can cause anxiety, irritation. They can cause upset. Again, look at animals. Animals respond very quickly to frequency. There are certain, did I mention to you what happened with the dog last week?
No.
No? Okay, right. Okay. So in Portugal, lots of big houses, lots of big gates. And when you walk past one of these houses, all you hear is bark, 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 dogs constantly, very irritating. And they're very yappy. The dogs are always growling, shouting. So I'd go for my morning walks on a regular basis. Right? And I was reading a few different bits and pieces in terms of research. And I was reading at what point we can hear frequency. So human beings hear between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz or 2 kilohertz, right? But dogs hear at another different frequency. Elephants hear at another different frequency. So elephants hear up to 50,000 kilohertz, right? Now, what that basically means is there's stuff that's in the atmosphere. If there's any believers who talk about in the atmosphere that you can't hear, but it's affecting you. Now, the worst thing about it is this. It's almost like we're the last ones to the party, guys. Because Hollywood is aware of it. Walt Disney is aware of it. You know, television uses frequency all the time. It uses sound all the time. I mean, in its most basic form where it's in your face, think of a horror film. Think of a horror film. If I went to you, what am I humming, Dr. Mike?
Jaws.
There you go. Now, when you listen to that, there was an experiment that we did, I think about a week ago, wasn't it, Luke? Where I actually played the theme tune, right? So as we're sitting here now, okay, but can you hear the music?
Yes.
Can you all hear the music, guys? I want you to observe how you feel right now whilst that music is playing, whilst I'm speaking to you. Okay? So what happened is the sound modulation device, one of the things that it does is it allows you to mimic frequencies or resonate different frequencies. And it goes up to 20,000 hertz. I'm going to stop this now because it's making me feel a bit uncomfortable. Guys, very simply, I was playing the Jaws theme tune in the background. And I don't know whether you observed when you were listening to me how it made you feel. But when we did this in our group previously, it made people feel so uncomfortable. It made them, somebody was speaking at the same time and they said that they didn't feel like they trusted what the person was saying because of what was going on in the background. Now, just very quickly, did that affect anybody in any way whilst I was playing that?
Yes, yeah. Balaji said she doesn't like it.
Fantastic. Yep, nor do I. And that is frequency. What you are listening to there are serious tones that are there to disrupt how you feel. They're there to have an impact on your emotions, and they do. Not just from what you think about, but from on a metaphysical standpoint as well. So frequency is something which is so important. It's massively important. So back to the conversation. Frequency modulation. I realized that dogs, you've heard of a dog whistle. If you see someone blow a dog whistle, you can't hear it yourself, but dogs can hear it clearly. I played the frequency modulation at something like, I think it was about 30,000 hertz. So I couldn't hear it. But as I'm walking towards the gate, and this dog is always barking, a big Alsatian, grizzly, quite horrible. Silence. Silence, couldn't hear anything. And it now is my companion. When I go on my walks, I make sure I've got the frequency, I'm armed with it. When I go past a certain dog, just press the button. To the point where there was a dog that was approaching me the other day. It was running towards me. I pulled it out, pressed play, and it just kind of whimpered away. Now, it doesn't hurt them from what I've been told. I have spoken to a couple of dog lovers. It doesn't hurt them, but it is uncomfortable, okay? Now, the other thing which is very interesting, on this particular sound modulator, this is a massive hack for you guys. It has a mosquito repellent. In fact, I'll show you. I'll show you very quickly, okay? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the sound frequency modulator. So if I pull my finger up or down, you'll see the numbers going up and down. Yeah. Sorry. At the top here, that's a mosquito sign. So if I press that button, see what pops up? And if I press it, this is now emitting a frequency that repels mosquitoes. I can't hear it. So what I'm getting at, guys, is frequency is everywhere. The moment we begin to have the conversation, frequency is not about sound. Frequency is about you. It's about me. It's about everything that we see, touch, feel, interact with. Frequency is everywhere. So for me, Dr. Mike, when I began to understand that conversation a lot more, when I began to understand how frequency played a part in my life, when I began to understand it, I utilized it to make myself, relieve myself of pain. I realized, hold on, this is something that I can't play around with. And it's something that I got to understand a lot more. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Fantastic. I mean, I've just read some of the chats, and they didn't like the Jaws music, and it's jarring, it's unnerving, it makes them feel uncomfortable, etc.
Oh, evil.
Yeah, evil. And I often think about the plugs. I think Julia's mentioned them, and Lurleen. The plugs you put in the wall to repel mice, but also you can repel foxes, squirrels with frequencies that we can't hear, but they don't like it. So, Joseph, the feedback from last week and this week is that, okay, Mike, you've told us all about this stuff and it's great. Thank you very much. How do we apply it? And obviously we need some portion control. We need to introduce this as a deliberate act rather than a random act. It's something you can take charge of, you can modify. You can, I think I've even mentioned it in previous, Joseph, that we can use certain frequencies to counteract other negative frequencies.
Definitely.
So for example, Joseph, when we were making music therapy, we had a series of frequencies in that solfeggio chart, plus frequencies that are in between those main frequencies.
Right.
But let's use those as landmarks, right? Some of the ones I've posted earlier on. And let's say we talked about 432 and 528. Yeah. We know what that sounds like because you can build that in a tone generator. You can build it in a keyboard modulator, whatever, right? And then what the idea for us was to have that sound resounding, echoing, repeating in the background as a wave, because you measure the frequency by the reoccurrence of that
resonance
measurement within a second.
Right.
And then the more the higher the frequency, the higher the sound. It just sounds higher in your eardrums. But most of these frequencies don't particularly sound great on their own. If you was to say, right, I'm going to sit in the bath and play 963, it's a very high-pitched sound that just could be a bit jarring after a while. It's a miracle sound. It's a miracle frequency. So what we done is we interlaced that frequency to continually play in the background. Right. And then we overlaid it with musical genre of your choice. Now, there are some musical genres that are very much susceptible to the negative frequencies. I'll let you guys figure that out. I'm not here to bash anything or anyone, right? But so it was a bit difficult to give it as a universal disclaimer that this music is a cure for all ills. It's a cure for those who want to listen to purer sound, purer music, to help. For example, I started this session by saying, look, we're in this pandemic. Many of us are feeling negative. Many of us are feeling anxious. Some of us are taking the antidepressants. Some of us are taking a bit more of a liquid diet, i.e. alcohol. Some of us are doing all sorts of things to numb the pain. So Joseph, where do we start? Where do we start? How do we...
This is a very important question, and it's something that I want you guys to think of it from this standpoint. Everything that we do is personal to us. Okay. So there isn't a one size fits all. Some things that will work for me may not work for you. So the first journey is discovery. And I think you've also got to remember what frequency is and how it impacts us. It's not just something that you listen to, it affects you on a metaphysical level. It affects you, in terms of the toxins in your body, in terms of, when anxiety is created, it creates cortisol in the body. Okay, and cortisol creates stress. Now, we also understand that where stress and anxiety is created, it creates illness and sickness. But this is just the stages. So the first most important thing that I would say to you is, it's one of the reasons, Dr. Mike, why we created our sound bathing um, social experiment. And there's somebody who reached out to me. Um, we're oversubscribed right now. So please forgive me, guys. We're oversubscribed. We're going to be setting up a new group from Monday. So Dr. Mike, if you've got anybody who wants to be a part of that group, they can definitely come along and be a part of it. The reason why we set it up is because I realized that frequency affects people differently, but it also is going to affect you differently at different points in time. Now, this is very interesting. I'm not going to name names because we respect everybody's privacy, but there's somebody who's going through some immense emotional trauma. Okay, and as a result, their heart, they've felt an intense amount of pain, in their heart because of what they're going through. So they started the sound frequency bathing, and there were certain frequencies that had a marginal effect, and there were other frequencies that had a terrible effect. Now, that was because of where that person was emotionally. Now, there was a frequency that really, really helped, and that was 396. Now, 396 as a frequency helps with removing guilt and fear. So because of where she was emotionally, when she played that frequency, it had a specific impact on her. Now, when she listened to that frequency in the beginning, a month ago, there was a massive release. So when she's now listened to that frequency again and again, and she listens to it a month later, that same frequency doesn't have the same impact that it had before. Does that make sense, guys?
Totally.
Right. So depending on where you are at, it's very important that you begin to understand the solfeggio frequencies and how they affect you specifically. Because what will begin to happen is it will unlock certain parts of you. Now, we've even had people have physical effects. They start releasing mucus, spitting up phlegm and saliva, because what this does is it breaks down toxins in your body. So this is something which is, it's whether you believe in it or whether you don't believe in it, it will still have an impact, but different frequencies will affect you differently.
Fantastic.
That makes sense, guys.
Fantastic. I'm just laughing at one of the chats. Dr. Lightborn, come on now. She said, is there a frequency that you can, can you get a frequency to make your children behave?
Yes. Yes. No, listen, I kid you not. Right. It's very interesting. Okay. We were having a conversation in one of our groups, and there's a beautiful lady called Patrice, and she does a lot. She's one of our moderators. She does a lot with sound. She does sound healing from a Buddhist standpoint. Okay, so we're not going to get religious about it, but she understands it from a very different standpoint. And she was talking about the frequencies that she was playing in the background, bearing at the time when there was a lot of homeschooling, and there was a lot of parents who were just literally ripping out their hair because homeschooling was very, very intense. And she played a few different frequencies. One frequency that helped was 852. And that's a frequency that talks about spiritual order. Okay. 528 hertz also is going to have an impact. Now, again, remember I said to you when I was at university, I played classical music. And as a result of me playing classical music, it made me feel very calm, just relaxed me, Again, playing this type of music in the background that is tuned to 528 hertz is going to have an impact, especially when it comes to young people and children. But again, become frequency and sound scientists and experiment. It's very important that you experiment. One thing I'm going to say to you is try not to mix low frequencies and high frequencies. So Dr. Mike, when you were speaking about having music intertwined, it's very important that you read the government, health warning. You can make yourself ill by doing that. You can make yourself physically throw up by listening to high frequencies and low frequencies at the same time. You can give yourself headaches. What you're doing is you're tapping into the internal communication source within your body. It's how your body functions. Remember, your body is a massive communication device. Don't ever forget that. As you're sitting there nodding, you're nodding because your ears here, your eyes are firm, and there's something that happens in that big computer, that gray matter, and it's all communication. Now, frequency can interfere with all of that. It can enhance it, but it can also interfere with it. So this is one of the reasons why I stress that you should do as much research as possible yourself. Yes, listen to Dr. Mike as he gives great information on the different frequencies and what they do, but have a real, be very aware when you're listening to those frequencies of how they make you feel. You are the best barometer. So again, people might be saying, okay, how do I know what music I listen to? And so listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. When I played Jaws, you did not have to ask twice whether you liked it or not. Straight away, no, evil, get it off, don't like it. So in the same way, your body knows what it likes and it knows what it doesn't like. The thing that you need to do is get more in tune. Sometimes you've got to be still. I gave an example last week of when I realized something about sound. It was when I heard myself. And the point that I heard myself is where everything else, I couldn't hear anything else. I was at a point of immense silence, and it was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Listen to silence, it's very loud. It sounds strange, right? But it's very loud because you can hear yourself. You can hear yourself think. You can hear your body parts. You can hear the mechanics. So at that moment in time, I could hear myself clearly. I could hear myself communicating with myself. My inner voice, I could hear it. This is something that I would advise you guys to try and get into a state where you can hear yourself. The clearer you can hear yourself whilst you're going through this whole, is silence a frequency? Everything's a frequency. So yes, Rox, silence is a frequency. When you get to that point of silence, you will be able to hear yourself very, very clearly. And also when you begin to, I would invite all of you, if you want to come along and do some of the sound bathing, you're more than welcome. Okay, because it's been an eye-opener for me as an individual. It's been an eye-opener for so many people who've come on the journey for 4 weeks. I was only supposed to do it for a week, and every single week, oh, please, can you do it again? Can you do it again? We need to do it again. And it's great because we're all learning amazing things. We've got so many testimonials from people, and I've asked everybody questions along the way. One of the things we stress is, look, create a bit of a diary. Write down how you feel when you start. Write down how you feel when you finish. For me, personally, when I listen to 963 Hertz, I listen to this in the shower. So I've got a little Bluetooth speaker, okay? And the Bluetooth speaker, I've got a little rainfall shower thing. So I put it on the top of that and I play the frequency. And again, decibels, volume plays a part in all of this also. So again, test yourself out. The first time I did this, I turned it up and it was quite loud, right? And this is the pure tone, because I don't like to listen to mixed tones. And again, when I'm doing my frequency stuff, I'm not listening to it for long periods of time. I'm listening to it for short bursts. So maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum, okay? If it's an intense frequency. So I put this Bluetooth speaker, it was on, and I started having my shower. And I get my best inspiration in the shower. I don't know if anybody else is the same, right? But I'm listening in the shower to this music and I start praying. And it was so intense. I felt that God heard me that day. I don't know what it was, but something resonated in me when I had that experience. And what we're hearing from loads of people is people are having these experiences whereby it's real. It's like people talk about, oh, if you can't see it, is it real? Well, you can't see the wind, but when it blows against you, you know it's real, right? So there's emotions that we encounter, especially when it comes to the whole frequency bathing. There's things that happen to us that people can't even explain. People began to break down and cry. People felt lightness, You know, people have felt, I mean, even Luke was having a conversation before. He was listening to 741 hertz, I think it was. And he said, I woke up today and I feel like I could tackle the world. I was on it. I was on it. And that's what these frequencies can begin to do. But again, I stress it. Please make sure that you take care when you're listening to these frequencies. Listen to
Fantastic.
yourself
Yeah.
and make sure that you make notes. Um, yeah, and
Joseph, that's really good advice, and I absolutely agree with everything you've said. Absolutely everything is. It's just like oranges. Too much oranges can make you constipated. You know, so it's little and often it's portion control, and um, I've got a few thoughts. We talk about DNA repair, getting rid of feelings of guilt, and so on. Do you know, we normally function with our old brain. When we're younger, um, we see fears and threats and we respond by fight or flight, typically. And it's a part of our brain, the amygdala, that seems to process our behaviors in a particular way. But as we mature, they say that a child under 4 years old, the hippocampus hasn't developed properly. So some of those behaviors that a child experiences in a young age group can actually dictate the pace. We talk about the first 1,000 days of a child's life, first 5 years, right? And 4 years. And then basically that part of our rational thinking, developed, advanced brain hasn't really been developed. So some of our learnt behaviors have been transmitted through our lives, and sometimes it's compromised us from really achieving who we ought to be and what's been set for us. We don't seem to want to walk in it. We feel guilty. We feel, oh, if only you knew what I've done, or if you know the family I've come from. And I tell you what, I reckon everybody on this platform's got a story to tell of some form of failure, or we didn't grow up with a silver spoon in our mouth. We struggled, our parents struggled, etc., etc., etc. So if you are feeling like there's a blockage and you've been counseling, you've done your self-help stuff, perhaps what Joseph is saying could be a really good self-reflection piece. Let me just try it. It's frequencies, it's around you, it's affecting you sometimes without you even knowing. But if you try to be a bit more deliberate and go through the notes of what we've mentioned and see what might work for you. Now, if you go online to the App Store or to, what's the one on Android? I don't know. We don't do Android here. Sorry for those Android lovers. But sorry, Rick. If you go to the shops where you can buy these apps, you can download a tone generator and for free. And you can tune in, as Joseph said, it doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be annoying. It just has to be effective. Background music, just about audible. And it's still going to have a profound effect on you. Please go ahead, Joseph.
Dr. Mike, there is a frequency generator that is quite straightforward, which would help because it's got some preset frequencies, which is called sound healing frequency. Don't be put off by the app, but straight away when you download it, it has got the 7 frequencies: 174, reducing pain. It's got 285, which infuses energy fields. It's got 396, which removes fear and guilt. It's got 417, which is facilitates change. It's got 528, which we've mentioned, which is DNA regeneration. It's got 639, which is spiritual connection. It's got 741, which is expression and solution. It's got 852, which is spiritual order. And the final one we mentioned, which is 963, which is to awaken your pineal gland. It's all already pre-set. And what it does is it allows you to set a timer. So you can actually put down, you can listen to it for 2 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 8 hours. So that's quite a decent one as well. That's if you don't want to experiment with lots of different frequencies. This is a good one to potentially use. There's one thing I just wanted to add. It was on what you spoke about when it comes to music. And myself and Luke, we had the conversation. There are three things that you need to be aware of when you're listening to popular music or reggae, raga, hip hop, R&B, all of these things, because there's things that work in tandem. Okay, and this is not in any particular order, but words play a massive part. When you're sitting down, you're listening to music, listen to those words. Because what happens is it can go into your conscious mind and it can be embedded into your subconscious mind. That's what happens when you're walking down the road, all of a sudden you start a song that you don't even like, right? That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is tempo. Now, Luke touched on this when we were having our conversation before. The tempo links to your heart rate. And that's where we can synchronize with what we're listening to. One of the other things is tone, which is the tonality, which is what Luke was just basically breaking down. Okay. All of these things come together when you're listening to music. So if you decide to start listening to drill music, you will hear lower bass tones. You listen to any kind of modern day music is a lot about the bass line. Oh yeah, can you feel that bass? Oh yeah. And it's something that is an extra, it's an out of the body experience, to be honest with you. But a lot of people don't understand it. When you compile that with negative language, and then the intention and the emotion of the artist as they're speaking about whatever activity it is, all of these things play a massive part. Just wanted to leave you with that.
As we look forward to this new sense of normalcy, and where our Prime Minister has put this roadmap in place to get out of this lockdown, I want us to leave lockdown equipped. I want us to leave lockdown in a better state than we came into it in.
Right.
And that's the gauntlet. That's the challenge. And one of the things we're going to have to do is do that self-assessment on what we're listening to. You know, Joseph talked about cutting down your Wi-Fi, cutting down your electronic fields, the stuff that we're surrounded by that's having an effect on our body, giving us headaches, etc., etc., etc. Some of it are causing cancers. All right? So as much as I've got so many things in our schedule that we want to talk about, I don't want to rush this one.
Right.
Because we've just touched the surface. Because I'm sure you guys could be saying, well, Mike, have you got any recommendations of songs to listen to? I have got some. I have. But I think first things first, download the app. I'm not getting any money from you downloading the app. I've got no dog in this fight as such. Councillor Patrick's already downloaded it. Brilliant. So, look, as you go, blend it. Put it in your environment. Joseph talked about putting it over his shower. Bluetooth speaker is played. Try it whilst you're gardening, whilst you're walking. Make sure it's not such a high frequency that it's annoying. And remember, as Joseph said, try not to mix the frequencies. Go with one for a moment. You know, if you feel today, I need some healing in my body physically, then 528 is a really good one to start at. If you've already been doing a lot of meditation and you have become a guru and you just feel there's another layer, then maybe 963 is for you. Yeah? But there's something for everyone. And wherever you are in that frequency, just maybe do 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes. Just start slowly. So if you guys say to me, Mike, I'll do this based on a show of hands, thumbs up. If you say, Mike, I want one more, at least one more, maybe two more, but definitely one more. Give me a thumbs up. We'll go and talk. We haven't even talked to Lurleen. She's pitch perfect. She can tell us some stuff about frequencies and knowing whether that frequency is slightly out. My goodness, we got a lot more to talk about. Healing, guys, healing. This is what it's not just about understanding music. I'm saying let's get healed. Let's get whole. Yeah? Hurt people, whole people, heal people. Let's get whole so we can heal. Everyone needs a bit of healing right now. Yeah? From childhood trauma, issues that you're facing in your life every single day. Perhaps this alongside accompaniment of music or sound or frequency can just help you along one more step until that follow-up comes and you start moving again, until you start jogging and trotting and until you can run.